Hi. Hi, my name is Oleg. I am an Android developer at InnoCode. So I write code since almost 20 years, but commercial experience is roughly 10 years. I've been doing some programming contests in the beginning and stuff like that. And I write Kotlin almost 4 years since Jake Wharton published his document on usability of Kotlin project for Android development. And today I'd like to share with you my experience of validating usability of Kotlin multiplatform for development not only for Android but other platforms. So a little disclaimer, Kotlin multiplatform is still experimental, and I'll do some live coding later, so it is my first public speaking. It is going to be a total disaster. Why Kotlin multi-platform? Usually, a project look like this. So you probably have some backend that communicates with a bunch of clients like web, iOS, Android, maybe more. And each of them has its own technology stack. So this makes difficult to share knowledge, share code, maintain code, etc. So would it be nice to have single technology that runs them all, even on backend? I didn't mention any technology stack on backend on previous slide intentionally because there are way too much of them. But it's definitely possible to run backend with Kotlin. And Kotlin multi-platform. But how can we achieve this? So Kotlin multi-platform promises to do this with compilation and transpiling. Transpiling is a process of conversion code from one programming language to another one. So in case of JVM and native, it compiles to bytecode and binaries. And for web, it transpiles to JavaScript. But this is only the half of the story. No one would like to throw away years of work just for yet another new shiny language. So actually we need back arrows here. We need backward compatibility and ability to use existing libraries, existing code. And this is what I've been talking about today. Initially, I wanted to show you live coding, but actually there is quite a lot of quirks, and it takes too much time. We are a little bit limited. So I ended up with quite a lot of slides. So let's start with the beginning, creating our project. And I chosen mobile, Android and iOS. And that's a bummer that IDEA welcomes you with the error message when you create this project. It's a simple one. It doesn't pick up the SDK for Android, but you can click Open File and just specify the path to your SDK. And hit that force refresh button, and you will figure out that there is another issue. There is no way to run your application. It's also simple. You click Add Configuration, plus button, Android app, specify name, choose module, OK, and you have everything green and ready to go. So let's hit the play button, and you, after a minute or two, you will see your application running. It's completely written on Kotlin. That was quite easy. So let's take a look what is for iOS. Let's open Xcode, open another project, navigate to project idea just created, choose iOS app, and it looks kind of okay. But when you try to run it, you will meet some errors again. This error states that there is no Gradle wrapper. But actually, we were warned about this if you pay attention to comments. And there is a copy framework task. It is run by Xcode automatically when it builds a project. And copy generated iOS framework to that iOS project. The destination directory it takes as a parameter. So how do we get Gradle wrapper? Just hit Run Anything button, write Gradle wrapper, hit Enter, and you're ready to go. Hit Play button, and you have iOS app on written with Kotlin. But where is web? Let's get back to where we started. There is another couple, JS client and JVM server, but I would like to keep them in one place. So I tried to add JavaScript to my project just by copying target. Actually, there is something more needed. This code a bit of magic. I found it on the internet, but then we have to add source sets with dependencies. You can notice that here is Kotlin X HTML added. Then we need a Kotlin frontend plugin in order to work with HTML. And here is another bummer. Gradle doesn't know where to get this front-end plugin. And the notion of plugins is a little bit different than we used to in Android Studio. So we need to go to Settings, Gradle, and this code is like a simple conversion from this new fancy notion to old one with colons. And then we have to add a repository where that plugin is. And another issue, it says that app bundle task cannot be added. That's because Android plugin already added that task, and there is a collision. So basically it means that you cannot use Kotlin front-end plugin and Android in the same project at the moment. But anyway, you can use Kotlin JS in your project for, let's say, Node.js development or even Cloud Functions. You can transpile your Kotlin code to functions that are running on AWS or Firebase functions. But let's move on and comment out everything related to Android. And then we need to configure that front-end plugin. It's quite simple. You specify name of the bundle. It will generate file like main.bundle.js, and the path to your resources. Next step, what we need is to create those resources. So we add folders in source folder. You can just copy iOS and add folder web. Actually, the one we specified in plugin config. This is a very simple HTML page that just takes our generated JavaScript and has empty body where Kotlin will add some content. And now the most interesting part, how we work with HTML from Kotlin. Here we need to add a main function in order to run our script. And by default, there is main function in common module, so we have to get rid of them, of it. And here you can see imports for browser and HTML, and it gives us nice suggestions for everything you have in HTML and browser. So how do we run our web project? Actually, there is a few tasks for Webpack. There is Webpack run, and when you choose a task, after a few minutes you will see the address where you can see your application up and running. And here you can see that code tags added in Kotlin code are actually here. So it works. But is it the full story? Actually, none project exists in isolation. Mostly you have quite extensive list of dependencies, like more than 10 libraries are used on average project. So that's the main thing I wanted to investigate. So I've chosen Firebase library, as it has native libraries for each of our clients. And I've prepared actually, in order to include Firebase library, you have to create a project in console, create a application for each platform, and generate config files, etc., etc. I've decided to skip that part. Probably you know how to do this, and I prepared a project where it is already set it up. But there is one more thing I'd like to show on slides. It is related to Xcode. So when you run pod init, it generates pod file that contains, it uses framework for iOS app and doesn't use for app. So as a result, when you run pod install, it again shows you some errors. So you have to use framework for both targets, and then again you run pod install. You try to run the project, and again some errors. So but actually this error also is warned before. So here is main thing. You have to be you you have to be careful about warnings you see in your console and tools you're using. So here is warning, and it already suggests you the solution for this error. So you have to add inherited flag for build settings in other linker flags, and then everything works well. So let's switch gears a little bit and try to do some coding. Let's start with Android. So here what we need is to add Firebase. So in common project we have empty database class, and here we have actual implementations which will write data to our database. So as you can see, here are all the code completion and suggestions. So it's really easy to write code in Kotlin that is used on Android. So we create a new entry and write the value that comes here as a parameter. And here is our UI that kind of works with the same interface for each platform. You have a presenter. Sorry. You have a presenter where you can just call method submit on submit click and pass value you want to store. So it has to start. That embarrassing moment when it takes some time. And here we can write something, hit submit. And it should appear here. No. Sorry. Set value. here it is. Great. So let's switch to web. So we have to comment out everything related to Android, as you remember. As you can see, we can use not package manager for our dependencies. There are some React modules you can use in your Kotlin project, but another thing almost missed. So here we basically do the same. You can see here a little bit bigger UI for web application, and let's add some Firebase. And Kotlin for interoperability with JavaScript has a dynamic keyword. It basically means that you will turn off all the type checks, as JavaScript is not strictly typed language. So in fact, in some cases, we cannot know what are these classes. And what happens when you turn off all the type checks, that you can no longer rely on your suggestions, and you're kind of blind. So here we have do the same JavaScript developers do. Just guess or copy paste from documentation. So there should be database, and here we have a reference to JS. And then we have to create new push, new node, and set value. And here we set. Thank you. And now we have to import our library. So let's do this external fun require name string. It will return something dynamic. And now we can Firebase. Now we can require our library. And use it. Let's try to run it. I'll just stop. There might be previous Webpack running on my machine because I've been preparing to this talk. And okay, it's still running. So basically, what dynamic says is like it tells that something will be there when when call will be invoked. So it doesn't know in advance if there will be that library. Yeah, we have our no. Firebase, no Firebase. Something went wrong. Let's figure out. Yeah, that's the issues with some live codings. Okay. Initialize app. It looks like we didn't initialize our application. Yes, totally right. So db Firebase initialize app, and here we pass a config that contains some keys that I wouldn't like to leak. So I've placed them here in separate file. Here. Here config dynamic. I'll run again. Submit. And yeah, we have it. Cool. Now let's switch to iOS. Sorry. So as you can see, here is much less code than in previous platforms. That's because in Xcode, storyboards and Swift view controllers are more tightened. So there is still UI work in Swift. And let's try to do the same. Firebase of Fire what? It doesn't know anything about Firebase. But why? That's because Firebase framework was added in iOS project, and our Kotlin project doesn't know anything about. So in fact, in order to supply this interoperability, we have to use a special tool, cinterop tool, and so basically we configure it like with okay, I'll show you. Here in build the Gradle file. We have to add, where is our iOS? There should be C interops section. So you have to specify def file, and it is like a property file with description where the headers are and some option for linker and compiler. So let's create cinterop folder. Sorry. And our def file, let's say Firebase def. So actually you have to create the file per each framework you want to do the interoperability. There should be like language. In our case, it's Objective-C. Headers. Where do we get our headers? So in our iOS app, there is a folder for pods, and navigating through these folders, you can find quite easily what you need. Usually it's somewhere in a public folder. So here is a Firebase core header file. Let's specify it here. Core H. And also we need Firebase database. Actually, compiler options and linker options might be specified here and in build Gradle file. In the result, they are concatenated. So I prefer to specify it in Gradle file, as it is more flexible. Here we will specify our project dir /src /ios main /cinterop Firebase def, and I will just copy and paste to save some time. So we specify folders where it should look for these header files, and it is folders that I showed you in pods folder. And another thing is that we need our compiler and linker options. So this is basically a path to root folder of the framework, and -f means that it is framework. If you are using C library, you have to use -l. And will it work? I hope so. Oh, C interrupts. C interrupts. What went wrong? Where is my pointer? Hey. Okay. Actually, we need to do it like this. Hey. Where is my pointer? Who knows how to get my pointer back? Hey, that's oh, who? The file. Let me check. C. One more thing. Firebase. And hey, here we have new task, C-interrupt. It cannot find something. That's because. Pardon me?
Maybe you missed one slash.
Where?
C-interrupt slash firebase.
C inter.
Dev file.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. Oh, what's again?
Folder name.
Folder name.
Check your folders.
You mean? Scene. Okay. Let's rename it. C interrupt. Hey, that works. Finally. Fire, what? Fear. In fact, it is fear database. Yeah, it works. But you probably noticed that it was kind of slow. It isn't that smooth as you have in Android. How many time? No, I have quite a lot of things to show still, but 0. So okay. Sadly, but I'll stop here. Actually, it works. I can show you afterwards how it works, and I have ready that code. The only thing here I can mention that it is a little bit hassle. You have to do all the wiring on your own, and that slowness. But it uses Kotlin native under the hood, and Kotlin native is not released yet, so I hope it will be smooth as Android by the time of release. And yeah, thank you. Maybe. Yeah.
Only one question. Which pros and cons you can highlight in terms of using Kotlin on website?
Yeah, thank you. On the website there is some pros. Is that if library you are going to use has a TypeScript types definition, you can use, there is a tool TS2KT, so you can convert these type definitions from TypeScript to Kotlin, and in fact Firebase has TypeScript definitions for Firebase functions. I didn't show you, you can do it on your own, like specify dynamic class and describe your API, but that's so sometimes it's worth to invest in describing API of some library, but in some cases you can benefit of ready to use TypeScript type definitions. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How does it work in iOS and JavaScript?
Yeah, it generates mappings, and there was a great speech on Kotlin Conf about Kotlin native interoperability with deep dive to code is generated, and when you create a simple hello world application, it takes quite a lot of space, just because it takes all the SDK library and do the mapping to native classes, and it's kind of useless. But I hope in future it will be reduced with some tree shaking or stuff like this. No, it. Yeah.
Just in case we will write the code in one code base and then use the same code with same classes on different platforms or not?
So if you are using only Kotlin code, you can extract it to a shared module, and it uses Java object only on JVM. For other platforms, it doesn't. So in fact, you have to write your implementation per platform for some parts.
So we don't have access to all the models, all the Kotlin objects?
You have. So basically, standard library is written purely in Kotlin, and it is extracted to a common module. Actually, JetBrains team work hard on creating other tools like serialization and networking purely in Kotlin, so you can use it on each platform. So basically, if you have no relations to platform, code can be compiled to any platform. But if you are using dependency to JVM, it cannot run on native or JavaScript. Thank you.
So you have a comment? Okay.
Now you have one module and different subsets for different platforms, yes?
Yeah.
Did you try to create different modules per platform?
Yeah, so initially Kotlin multi-platform generated project where per each platform there was a build Gradle file, and like half a year ago they switched to a new model, and now they are using a single build Gradle file for each platforms, and Actually, this is a root cause of the issue with intersection of tasks like Android and front end.
So it's a common way to create such code.
Yeah, it's a new way recommended by JetBrains.
I ask because when you do changes in one subset, then you need to build the whole module. So, for example, if you have a big module common, for example, you have a lot of code in common subset.
I
Spend a lot of time to build.
So Kotlin compiler supports incremental builds, so it shouldn't rebuild the whole module, only even whole source set, just things were changed.
Okay.
Окей, супер. Я хочу завершити. Якщо в когось ще якісь запитання, ви можете на каву перерві зараз Олега трохи помучити. Тому, Олег, ти дуже хвилювався. Я хочу ще раз дуже поплескати.